They don't owe you anything, but it still hurts. You gave your heart, your time, your loyalty. You showed up when they didn't even ask. You held space for their chaos, sacrificed your peace, and waited silently hoping they'd see your worth. But they didn't, and now you're left with a hollow ache and a brutal truth: they don't owe you anything. Not love, not closure, not even an explanation. Still, the pain feels real. It feels personal. But what if this pain wasn't punishment? It was a wake-up call, a doorway to the version of you who stops waiting and starts rising. Because the truth is, they were never your savior. They were your lesson. And this is your turning point. The silent expectations. You never said it out loud, but deep down you expected them to care. Not because they had to, but because you would have. You were there when they needed you. You listened when no one else did. You showed up again and again. And in your heart you thought, surely when I fall apart they'll catch me too. But they didn't. And here's the truth most people won't say out loud. We don't just get hurt by what people do. We get destroyed by what they didn't do when we needed them most. You didn't ask for much, just presence, just loyalty, just for them to show up when you couldn't hold yourself together anymore. But what you didn't realize is that you wrote a contract in your head, a silent agreement they never signed. You expected them to return the love in the same shape you gave it. You assumed they felt the weight of your sacrifice. You hoped they'd show up with the same urgency you had for them. But the truth, they never promised you that. They never said they'd be your anchor. They never signed up to be your emotional safety net. And still, it hurts like hell. Because this isn't just a broken expectation. This feels like personal rejection. Like you gave your soul away and it wasn't even noticed, let alone valued. But stop right there. This moment, this ache, it's not here to break you. It's here to wake you. Because this is where transformation begins. When you stop expecting others to carry your worth. When you stop giving people roles in your life they never agreed to play. Let that land. You gave them power. Power to define how lovable, worthy, and important you were based on whether or not they stayed. And when they didn't, you collapsed. But what if this collapse isn't the end? What if it's the beginning of a new contract? One with yourself. One where your value isn't borrowed from someone else's attention. Where your worth isn't measured by how quickly they respond. Where your strength is born the moment you take your power back. This pain didn't come to destroy you. It came to show you where you gave yourself away. And now you see it clearly. They don't owe you anything, but you owe yourself everything. This is where the shift begins. Not by holding grudges, but by holding yourself to a higher standard. You showed up for them. Now it's time to show up for you. Rejection feels like death. You thought you were strong, until they walked away, until the calls stopped. The text faded. The silence grew louder than your screams. And suddenly you weren't just sad, you were shattered. Because this isn't about ego. This isn't just disappointment. This is grief. Rejection doesn't knock politely. It kicks down the door of your identity. It makes you question everything. Was I not enough? Was I too much? Did I ever matter at all? And here's the thing they don't teach you in school. Your brain processes rejection almost exactly like physical pain. It lights up the same neural pathways. It floods your body with the same survival alarms. To your mind, rejection is death. Not literal death, but death of connection. Death of safety. Death of being seen and chosen. Because we're not wired to survive alone. We are built biologically to belong. And when someone detaches, it's not just emotional, it's existential. That's why you lie awake replaying every conversation. Why your chest feels tight, your stomach sinks, your throat locks up. You're in mourning. Not for the person, but for the version of yourself that felt whole when they were around. You weren't just losing them. You were losing the mirror that reflected your value. And in the chaos, here's what your brain whispers. If they left, something must be wrong with me. But hear this, that voice is lying. They didn't leave because you were unworthy. They left because of who they are, not who you are. But pain doesn't wait for logic. Pain wants answers. And when it can't find any, it turns on you. That's why this hurts so damn bad. Not just because they disappeared, but because their silence made you question your own voice. So let's get honest. Yes, rejection stings. Yes, it carves holes in your chest. Yes, it feels like death. But death isn't the end. Death is a doorway. A doorway to truth. A doorway to reclaiming your power. A doorway to saying, if they don't see me, I will stop begging to be seen. If they don't choose me, I will stop shrinking to be chosen. Because the deeper truth, You've been outsourcing your self-worth to people who were never meant to hold it. It's time to take it back, piece by painful piece, step by bloody step, and rebuild your identity, not from who walked away, but from who's still standing. You and you're not done yet. You're just beginning. They were never yours to begin with. Let's rip the band-aid off. They were never yours. Not truly. Not fully. Not in the way your heart desperately hoped. Because people aren't possessions. You can't own them with your love. You can't keep them with your loyalty. You can't cage them with your kindness. And yet that's what your mind tried to do, isn't it? Somewhere deep inside you believed, if I give enough, they'll stay. If I love hard enough, they'll love me back. But here's the truth most never say out loud. You were negotiating with a fantasy, not a relationship, a contract that only you signed. And now that illusion is burning in front of you. So let's get clear. They didn't owe you forever. They didn't owe you the version of them you built in your head. Because people don't belong to us. That belief that someone should stay because you suffered, because you showed up, because you loved them right. That's the lie. That's the ego talking. The ego says if I gave my all, they should have given me theirs. But life isn't fair like that. Love doesn't work on balance sheets. And human hearts don't follow contracts signed in silence. So why does it hurt so much? Because it wasn't just about losing them. It was about losing control. It was about your ego's identity being tied to someone who was never yours to control in the first place. And that stings. But inside that sting is your freedom. Because when you let go of the illusion of ownership, you make space for something real. Self-possession. Your peace cannot be held hostage by someone else's presence. Your worth isn't collateral for someone's affection. Your identity doesn't collapse when someone walks away, unless you built it around them. And that's the real breakthrough. You didn't lose your person, you lost your illusion. You didn't lose your future, you lost the fantasy. What remains is truth. And truth is solid. Truth doesn't walk away. Truth sets you free. So breathe. Not because it's easy, but because it's real now. They didn't belong to you. And you don't belong in that pain. Let them go. Not because they deserve peace, but because you do. Because the more you release them, the more you return to yourself. And when you finally come home to you, no one can ever leave you again. When loyalty turns into self-betrayal. Let's talk about the lie that keeps you trapped. Loyalty sounds noble, doesn't it? Stay loyal, ride or die. Never give up on people. You were raised on that mindset. You became that mindset. But here's what no one tells you. Loyalty can turn into self-betrayal. It happens when you keep showing up for people who stop showing up for you. When your devotion becomes your downfall. When you confuse love with sacrifice and forget that love was never meant to mean self-abandonment. You know the feeling. Lying awake waiting for a reply. Replaying conversations. Hoping they'll see your worth if you just hang on long enough. That's not love. That's a trauma loop. That's your fear of being left making decisions for you. Because deep down you weren't staying for them. You were staying to avoid being alone. To avoid the gut punch of rejection. To avoid confirming the story your wounded inner child believes. If I let go, I'll lose everything. But here's the truth that sets you free. Every time you stay where you're not valued, you're whispering to yourself, I don't matter. And that quiet betrayal, it adds up. It chips away at your self-worth. It teaches your nervous system that your needs are negotiable. It convinces your heart that love must be earned through pain. That's not loyalty. That's bondage. That's emotional imprisonment dressed up as commitment. And the cost? You start disappearing. You shrink to fit their neglect. You smile through their silence. You justify their distance. All while bleeding out emotionally, quietly, invisibly. But here's your wake-up call. Loyalty to others means nothing if you've abandoned yourself. Read that again. Because there comes a moment when survival demands rebellion. A rebellion against your patterns. A rebellion against people pleasing. A rebellion against mistaking crumbs for connection. And that moment is now. You don't heal by holding on tighter. You heal by letting go louder. By making noise when your soul is starving. By walking away not because you stopped caring, but because you finally started caring about you. This isn't weakness. This is power. The day you choose you, fully, loudly, unapologetically, that's the day you break the pattern. So stop calling it loyalty. Start calling it what it is. Self-harm disguised as hope. And make this promise. Never again will you stay somewhere that costs you your peace. Because the truth is brutal, but it's beautiful. Not everyone deserves your loyalty, but you always deserve your own. The moment you realize they're not coming back. There's a moment that doesn't come with a warning. It's not dramatic. There's no text. No call, no closure, just silence. And in that silence, something inside you finally breaks. Not loudly, not with rage, but quietly, like the sound of hope giving up. You realize they're not coming back. No apology, no explanation, not even the dignity of a goodbye. And that hurts more than anything they ever did while they were with you. Because your mind still replays it all. The laughter, the late night talks, the promises they whispered like forever. You hold on to the maybe. Maybe they'll realize. Maybe they'll regret. Maybe they'll come home. But deep down you know they're not coming. And it wrecks you. Not because you can't live without them, but because a part of you built your healing on the belief that they'd one day come back and make it right. You weren't just waiting for them. You were waiting for validation, for meaning, for justice, for closure. But life doesn't always give you that. Sometimes the closure you crave is silence. And that silence, it's deafening. Because it forces you to confront the truth. You made someone your home, and now you're homeless. That's not something you just get over. That's a storm you survive. You go through all the stages. Denial, they'll come around. Bargaining, if I just fix myself, maybe they'll see me. Anger, how could they do this to me? Despair, was I never enough? But then, if you're brave enough to sit in the pain, to stop running, to stop chasing ghosts, you hit something deeper. A question that cracks open your soul. If they're not coming back, who do I become now? That question is terrifying. Because it means you have to stop waiting. It means the fantasy is dead. It means the rescue isn't coming, and you are all you've got. But there's beauty in that moment too. Because what feels like the end of everything is actually the beginning of you. When you stop hoping they'll come back, you start returning to yourself. That's not the closure you wanted. It's the one you needed. So take this moment, own the heartbreak, mourn what could have been, and then slowly, bravely begin again. Because maybe they're not coming back, but neither is the version of you who waited this long to heal. Why it still hurts, even if you know better, you tell yourself the truth 1,000 times. They weren't good for me, they showed me who they were. I deserve better. Logically, you get it. You're smart. You see the red flags now. You know the dynamic was toxic. You know they took more than they gave. You know they left and haven't looked back. So why the hell does it still hurt so much? Here's the truth most people won't tell you. Your heart doesn't move at the speed of your brain. Because pain isn't logic, it's biology, it's memory, it's trauma. Every moment you shared with them carved a groove into your nervous system. Every laugh, every touch, every soft word was recorded. And now every time you walk past the place you went together, every time you hear their song, your body responds before your brain can correct it. You're not weak, you're wired. Your mind might understand, but your emotional body hasn't caught up yet. That's why you feel stuck. That's why healing feels unfair, like dragging yourself uphill with no sign of relief. Because you're not just grieving the person, you're grieving who you were when they were in your life. The version of you that felt loved, chosen, seen, even if it was temporary. Your pain isn't a sign that you're broken. It's a sign that you were open, that you allowed yourself to feel deeply, to hope boldly. And now that openness is raw. It aches like an open wound, not because you're wrong, but because you're human. So stop shaming yourself for still feeling. Stop thinking you're behind in your healing journey because your brain has moved on but your heart hasn't. This disconnect is part of the process. You can know better and still ache. You can see the truth and still miss the lie. And here's the power. The longer you sit with that pain instead of numbing it, the faster your body will learn that you're safe now, that you're not abandoned, that you're not unloved, that you on your own are whole. The pain isn't weakness. It's your nervous system recalibrating. It's the old identity fighting to stay alive, but a new one is being born underneath it. And that version of you, the one that's learning to trust again, to breathe again, to live without needing them to come back. That's the real you. Not the one who needed closure, not the one who begged for clarity, but the one who walked through fire and finally realized you are the closure, taking back what you gave away. They didn't just walk away with your presence, they walked away with your energy, your identity, your love. And somewhere along the way they convinced you to hand over pieces of yourself, willingly. Not because you were weak, but because you believed in the potential. Because you saw something real in someone who never saw all of you. Because when you love, you go all in, even when they're only half present. You gave them time you'll never get back. You gave them words, support, intimacy, prayers. You gave them space in your head, long after they were gone. And that is what ends today. This is your turning point. Not the moment you move on from them, but the moment you move back into yourself. Because here's the truth no one talks about. When someone leaves, they don't just exit your life. They leave with your power if you don't take it back. So now you reclaim it. Every thought you spent replaying the past, that belongs to you now, for building your future. Every tear that fell in silence, that's not weakness. That's your soul cleansing space for something better. And what about your identity? You may have forgotten who you were before them, but you're about to meet someone even more powerful. The version of you that rose without apology. Taking back what you gave away doesn't mean you never loved. It means you finally learned that you matter too. That your energy isn't a charity. That your love isn't disposable. That you don't owe anyone unlimited access to your heart. Set the boundary, not just with them, with your own thoughts. Every time you catch yourself slipping back into what if, interrupt it with not anymore. This is the rebuild, the restoration, the sacred act of choosing yourself, deliberately every single day, even when it's hard, especially when it hurts. You gave away your power once, but now you're taking it back, piece by piece, and with every piece you become someone they don't even recognize, because you're no longer begging to be chosen. You're becoming the one who does the choosing. Nobody owes you, but you owe yourself. Let's be real, you keep waiting for something that might never come. An apology, an explanation, a sign that they finally get it, that they finally understand what they put you through. But here's the truth that's hard to swallow. Nobody owes you anything, not love, not loyalty, not closure, not even the decency to care that they hurt you. And if you keep living your life in the shadow of what someone else should have done, you'll keep shrinking your power to the size of their absence. But what if that pain wasn't rejection, wasn't betrayal, but a redirection? Not everyone who walks into your life is meant to stay. Some people are just mirrors. They reflect the wounds you still carry. They trigger the healing you never asked for but desperately needed. And when they leave, they don't owe you peace. You owe you peace. It's not their job to put you back together. It's yours, because here's the most liberating truth you'll ever hear. Your healing is not dependent on their guilt. Your worth isn't measured by their regret. And your future, it has nothing to do with their presence. You've given too much energy waiting for them to make things right. But now it's time to make things right with yourself. You owe yourself the love you gave away, the safety you begged for, the forgiveness you handed out so freely but never gave to yourself. You owe yourself a life that's no longer delayed by their silence. You owe yourself the version of you that was buried beneath the need to be understood. You owe yourself the damn truth that you're not broken because they left. You're powerful because you stayed with yourself, through the pain, through the shame, through the sleepless nights and screaming thoughts. This is not about becoming bitter. It's about becoming so whole they can't recognize the version of you they once broke. It's about rising not to prove them wrong, but to finally prove yourself right. Nobody owes you love, but you owe yourself the love you've been begging others to give you. Nobody owes you healing, but you owe yourself the kind of healing that rewrites your entire identity. And you don't need anyone's permission to start. You've waited long enough, it's time to stop handing your life to people who never earned it, and start owning the power that's been inside you all along.
Nobody owes you, but you owe yourself. Let's be real. You keep waiting for something that might never come. An apology, an explanation, a sign that they finally get it, that they finally understand what they put you through. But here's the truth that's hard to swallow. Nobody owes you anything, not love, not loyalty, not closure, not even the decency to care that they hurt you. And if you keep living your life in the shadow of what someone else should have done, you'll keep shrinking your power to the size of their absence. But what if that pain wasn't rejection, wasn't betrayal, but a redirection? Not everyone who walks into your life is meant to stay. Some people are just mirrors. They reflect the wounds you still carry. They trigger the healing you never asked for but desperately needed. And when they leave, they don't owe you peace. You owe you peace. It's not their job to put you back together. It's yours. Because here's the most liberating truth you'll ever hear. Your healing is not dependent on their guilt. Your worth isn't measured by their regret. And your future, it has nothing to do with their presence. You've given too much energy waiting for them to make things right. But now it's time to make things right with yourself. You owe yourself the love you gave away, the safety you begged for, the forgiveness you handed out so freely, but never gave to yourself. You owe yourself a life that's no longer delayed by their silence. You owe yourself the version of you that was buried beneath the need to be understood. You owe yourself the damn truth that you're not broken because they left. You're powerful because you stayed with yourself through the pain, through the shame, through the sleepless nights and screaming thoughts. This is not about becoming bitter. It's about becoming so whole they can't recognize the version of you they once broke. It's about rising, not to prove them wrong, but to finally prove yourself right. Nobody owes you love, but you owe yourself the love you've been begging others to give you. Nobody owes you healing, but you owe yourself the kind of healing that rewrites your entire identity. And you don't need anyone's permission to start. You've waited long enough. It's time to stop handing your life to people who never earned it, and start owning the power that's been inside you all along. Power comes from letting go, not holding on. You've been holding on so tightly to the memory, to the heartbreak, to the moment everything shattered. Like if you let it go, it means it didn't matter, that it didn't hurt, that you're weak for walking away. But let me tell you the truth. Holding on isn't strength, it's survival. And survival isn't living. You're not weak because you're tired. You're not broken because you're ready to let it go. You're strong, stronger than you know, because you're even considering the courage it takes to release the weight that's been crushing you for far too long. We're conditioned to believe that if we hold on long enough, we'll somehow change the past, rewrite the ending, force people to become who they should have been. But that's not power, that's prison. You were never meant to carry this much pain, this much self-blame, this much what if and why me. You've built your identity around a wound, and then called it loyalty. But listen to me, loyalty to your pain will never lead to freedom. Letting go isn't forgetting, it isn't pretending, it isn't saying it didn't happen. Letting go is standing in the fire and saying, it happened, it broke me, but it will not define me. Power isn't found in the grip, it's found in the release, in surrendering the illusion that you needed closure, in dropping the need to make them see your worth, in giving up the hope that the past could ever turn into something it was never meant to be. You don't have to win the argument, you don't have to prove your pain, you don't even have to be understood. You just have to be free. And freedom comes when you stop dragging the story of your suffering into every tomorrow. When you realize that healing doesn't mean forgetting, it means finally being at peace with the fact that they'll never make it right. You don't let go because they deserve peace. You let go because you do, because your nervous system is tired, your heart is bruised, your soul is aching for space, and you can't create a future while clinging to the ghosts of a past that's already done its damage. You want real power. Release the grip, trust the process, step into the unknown, because what's waiting for you on the other side of letting go is everything you thought you lost when they walked away, turning pain into power. There comes a moment in every story of suffering where the pain no longer paralyzes, it awakens. You've cried long enough, you've begged life to make it right, you've whispered why me into the darkness, but now something shifts. You're done being the victim of your own story. Because here's the truth, your pain is not your identity, it's the initiation. You were never meant to stay broken. You were meant to rise, stronger, louder, clearer, not in spite of the pain, but because of it. Do you want to know what real transformation looks like? It's not in some perfect healing moment, it's in the decision to stop using your wounds as excuses and start using them as weapons of growth. You don't get stronger by pretending the pain didn't happen. You get stronger by looking it dead in the eye and saying, you didn't destroy me, you forged me. This is where the shift happens, from the one who was abandoned, to the one who learned how to belong to themselves, from the one who was betrayed, to the one who refuses to betray themselves again, from the one who waited for someone to choose them, to the one who finally chooses themselves. That's how warriors are born, not from comfort, but from the chaos. This is your power, to decide that the pain didn't come to punish you. It came to prepare you.
You think you lost everything?
No, you were being stripped of everything that wasn't you. You think it broke you? No, it broke the illusion, so you could finally meet who you really are. And that version of you, they don't chase, they don't beg, they don't shrink, they lead. Because every tear you cried became fuel, every sleepless night, a lesson, every betrayal, a reminder that you were your own home. So when people ask you what changed, don't say I healed. Say this: I got tired of waiting for life to save me, so I became the damn fire. That's the moment you reclaim your life. That's the moment you stop being haunted by the past and start using it as blueprint for your breakthrough. This isn't just healing, this is rebirth. Because turning pain into power isn't a quote, It's a way of life, and your life, your real life, begins now. Become the one who never left you. They were a mirror, not a masterpiece. Let's stop pretending they were everything. Let's stop romanticizing the ones who shattered us. They weren't your destiny. They were your mirror, a reflection of where you were still bleeding, where your self-worth was still negotiable, where you were still giving love to avoid giving it to yourself. They triggered the parts of you that were never healed. They revealed the wounds you thought you had buried. They weren't a masterpiece you lost. They were a lesson you needed. And that lesson, it wasn't about how broken they are. It was about how much of yourself you were willing to abandon just to feel chosen. Read that again, because the truth is, they didn't betray you. They showed you where you were betraying yourself. They didn't reject your worth. They exposed how much you were still seeking it in someone else's eyes. They didn't break you. They held up the mirror, and you saw the cracks you'd ignored for years. But here's what makes this moment sacred. Now you get to choose what to do with the reflection. You get to stop chasing closure and start claiming power, because what you lost wasn't love. It was the illusion that someone else could complete you. You were never missing pieces. You were just looking at yourself through a distorted mirror and calling it the truth. But not anymore. Now you're the sculptor. Now you get to rebuild. Not from the memory of who hurt you, but from the power of who you've become. You are not the broken version of yourself they knew. You're the version that survived them. You don't need their apology. You don't need them to see your worth. You don't even need to understand why they left. What you need is to stop making them the center of your story. They were a mirror, not a masterpiece. And now that you've seen what needed healing, you can finally create your own, one brushstroke at a time, one boundary at a time, one I choose me at a time. Let them go, not out of bitterness, but out of clarity. You were never meant to be theirs. You were meant to be free. So take the reflection, thank the mirror, and then walk away, because the masterpiece you were looking for is the one you're about to become. And that's unshakable. Let's be honest. You've been waiting for someone to show up, to finally love you the way you always deserved, to see you, hold you, choose you, but they didn't. And that absence, it didn't just hurt, it shaped you. You started believing that love had to be earned, that your worth was negotiable, that if you just became enough, someone would stay. But here's the truth. You've been trying to rescue yourself through other people, and it's time to stop, because the person you've been waiting for is you. You don't need them to come back. You don't need closure from the ones who ghosted your heart. What you need, what you've always needed, is to become the one who never leaves you behind again. This is the moment where the healing becomes personal, where you stop outsourcing your value to the world and reclaim it from within. You start reparenting the parts of you that were neglected. You speak to your wounds like a protector, not a prisoner. You stop abandoning yourself every time it gets hard, because the real betrayal, it wasn't when they left. It's every time you silenced your truth to be accepted. Every time you minimized your needs to keep the peace. Every time you waited for someone else to give you permission to feel whole. Not anymore. Today, you draw a line in the sand. You say, I will not leave me. You learn to sit with your own pain, without shame. You learn to love the messy, raw, broken parts, without flinching. You learn to be loyal to your soul, even when the world isn't. And suddenly you become dangerous. The moment you become the one who never leaves you, you stop chasing people who always do. You don't beg for love. You embody it. You don't shrink to fit in. You expand to take up space. You stop settling for crumbs, because you've become your own feast. This is deeper than confidence. This is self-devotion, the kind that says, I'm not waiting to be chosen. I choose me, every single day. That's what it means to be unbreakable. Not because life got easier, but because you stopped abandoning yourself when it got hard. You are not the child who was left. You are the warrior who stayed. And that changes everything. This is the start of a new loyalty, not to their opinion, not to the past, but to the truth of who you are. And that truth is unshakable.